What's up, guys? Welcome back to Think Big Bodybuilding Media. I'm Scott McNally. I'm back with Tommy Stiles. We are going to continue our case study in training. Today, we're going to talk about chest. I have a couple notes before we get started, Tommy. Anybody who is catching this on video, we also have our audio podcast. It's been moved. New RSS feed is Think Big Bodybuilding. So you can find that at iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Play Store, whatever. I don't know. Also, we are presented by True Nutrition. All of our programming is. You can check us out and support our show by using our code ADVICES. A lot of great health supplements, performance supplements, bulk supplements, all sorts of formulas. Enough of that. Tommy Stiles, man, it's been a minute. How you been?
I'm good, brother. Glad to see you're back moving around.
Yeah, tell me about it, man. We got a lot of really good feedback on our first installment of this mini series. If you guys haven't seen it, it's been a couple months now. Tommy and I broke down basically the anatomy of a back workout. We talked about everything from start to finish and what's going through our minds while we're doing it. Both of us have been training for a long time, and neither of us have had, I would say, like the best genetics, but we've been able to make some decent progress. Now Tommy's out in Arizona training with Dusty, so he's been getting some cool insights out there. I've had the opportunity to train with a lot of really well-known people that I've respected through the years, and we're going to try to share that with you guys here today. Like I said, Tommy, we got some good feedback on that one, man. Then I got sick, and everything fell apart. I couldn't really think about training for a while, but I'm glad to be back, man. How's your training going?
It's going good. Still strong. Haven't really lost much. Pulled back the volume a little bit as we move on in this prep. So I'm 8 weeks out tomorrow.
Okay.
Eight and 10 weeks out. So food's still pretty high. Cardio's daily now, but I still believe the best way to burn body fat is with your training intensity. So that's my performance is something I constantly audit, constantly make sure I'm able to push it. And then obviously you listen to your body, but we'll be able to touch on some things that have helped me still keep training intensity high in prep. Because you and I are the same. You don't lower the training. You don't change the training up just because you're in prep and calories get lower and caloric expenditure is higher. You still try to, do what you did that got you the muscle in the first place.
Sure.
So we'll be able to touch on some of that. But yeah, I also got a lot of good feedback on the first episode we put out. So somebody likes what we're saying.
We'll try to keep this going now that we're back. We'll bring the next installment. Well, let's shoot for like maybe every couple weeks. We'll put these out. If you guys have any suggestions, anything that you would like us to cover next, let us know. So we did back. Today we're going to do chest. Chest is something that Tommy and I both have had to really think about. This isn't this isn't a muscle group that just came naturally for me, and I believe that's the same for you, isn't it?
Very much, yeah. When I learned how to press, I didn't learn how to press with my chest. I learned how to press just to move the weight.
Yeah.
I was, like anybody who got into the gym, I might have just wanted to have a really good flat bench press.
Yeah.
Like we were all chasing at one point. So I never learned how to engage my chest in a press. I was very delt dominant, so I grew big front delts and had no chest. And the presentation that I had, if you look at my physique from front relax, is almost like one of those big salad bowls. You got your two ends out here, and then it caves in.
Okay.
So that's I had to fill in the gaps and really break everything down, toss some movements that don't work with me. I'm 5'10" and pretty long limbs, so I've had to play with ranges of motion. I've had to work on mobility, as I have with every, muscle group. I've had to increase my mobility and just really get analytical with my training and with my performance, the cadence of the reps, down to all the details. I mean, we were talking off the air, but you and I aren't blessed with the ability just to pick up weights and grow. We have to really, have a stubborn approach that we're not going to quit because it's harder for us.
Yeah.
And I think that's a blessing because it allows us to talk and bounce ideas off of each other, and even have the opportunity to put episodes like we're putting out right now.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's through that experience that, and here's what I'm hoping. I know both of us get asked by other people who are newer to lifting weights, that they want to know, like, well, what do you do for this? How do you train that muscle? And having had to think about it a lot, you've had the ability to then, like, learn how to articulate what you're doing too. So I definitely think that, having to go through the hard work is helpful. Let's just dive into it, man. Where does your chest training start?
It starts with mobility and potentiation, which we covered in the first episode. So I really got to get my shoulders moving. I don't have any major shoulder injuries, but I've just got, they've taken a beating, just from pressing. And I was a baseball player before I got into bodybuilding, so that takes a toll. So I spend 10 minutes, with bands, just doing different warm up stuff. Just really making sure the rotator cuff, the infra spinatus, all of those little muscles that are in the shoulder are ready and warm before I even touch a bar or dumbbells. From there, I'll do some light flies on the pec deck just to get some blood flowing in my chest. That's kind of where I just really squeeze the reps out. I'm not even trying to accumulate any fatigue. I just want to make a connection with my mind and my chest. We talked about it before, but everything we're talking about in these episodes is from the perspective of bodybuilding. Now, I could move something with ease from point A to point B, but if I want to move it with my chest, I have to engage it in the stretch and then contract it to the point of, maximum contraction.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to build that mental connection. It's kind of like starting a fire. Like when you first get the fire going, it takes a while to really get burning, but as heat, heat rises and the fire builds up, then it starts to stoke, right? So that's kind of the mentality I try to take when I'm getting into it. And then from there, so what I'll do is I'll cover a workout that I did Tuesday for chest.
Okay.
Because it's really fresh in my mind, and I'll be able to, like everything, it's short and sweet. I don't do a ton of volume. I don't have a ton of movements, but I try to maximize the effort that I give to each movement. So I started with Incline Barbell, and I haven't done Incline Barbell in weeks because Dusty was dealing with a pec tear. So our chest training was kind of abbreviated around that, which is fine with me. So warm-up wise, when I get deeper into a prep, the first thing that will start to take a hit for me is pressing strength. I don't have as much, fluid around the joint and the shoulder, and it's just I have long arms. I've never been a strong presser to begin with. I'll preface that right now. Like I do not have any amazing numbers. I don't put 405 on the bar and rip it out. Every 5 pounds that I've been able to add to each side, I've had to grind for. So if you struggle with pressing, I'm here for you. I hear you.
Yeah.
So, I started with the bar, just 15 reps. Again, same thing as the pec deck, just really trying to feel the chest open and then contract at the top of each rep. I think that's a big thing to really make sure you're doing when you're getting into your pressing, whether it's your first exercise or any exercise, is make sure the chest is opening, because it's easy to take the bar to the bottom but not open your chest. You can still be shoulders rolled forward and closed.
Yeah.
And it's moving, but you're not moving it with your chest, right? So I think making sure that chest muscle's opened up, or both pecs are opened up is key. I don't think a lot of people get themselves to a point where they have a full active range of motion before they start training.
Yeah.
Because what do a lot of people do? They probably go in the gym, maybe they go to the flat barbell, or if they're bodybuilders and they've listened to all the podcasts you've put out, maybe they have a different program, but a lot of people are going to go in and they're going to put 145 on each side and they're going to start repping, right?
Right.
That's the traditional approach. So my thinking is maybe take a step back and take a slower approach to getting up to that 135. Make sure that when you get to 135, you're primed.
Yeah.
and then we go from there. So, I did 45, 15 reps. I did 25s on each side for 10 reps, and then I put a 45 on each side, 8 reps. As I increase weight to get to my working set, I decrease the reps. So it's ascending weight, descending reps is kind of how I would describe it. And I had a goal. My scheme for the workout was I wanted 2 sets with the incline barbell. First set, 6 to 8. Second set, I wanted it to be anywhere from 8 to 12. So from 135, I go to 185, get that for 4 or 5. From there, go to 225, get that for 3. From there, add a 10 to each side and get that for, 2. And then I add another 10 to each side. So now we're at 265. And, I didn't know what my working weight was going to be because I haven't done this movement in weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd rather play it. I don't want to say err on the side of caution, but what I don't want to do is put a weight on the bar, especially this deep in prep, that I'm only going to get for 3 reps.
Sure. No, that's a risk, man.
Yeah, I've done that in prep before where it's like you think the strength is there and it's just not. And it's not a negative. You're not going to be putting up record numbers when you're at some point of your prep. Yeah. You have to just accept that. And I don't think I'm at that point in my prep yet, but I just knew on this movement that I needed to err on the side of caution. I wanted to still keep the mindset that I'm a bodybuilder. I'm not trying to have a 3-rep press.
Right.
So 265, that went for 6 reps on my own and then a forced 7th, which I was okay with. And then for the second set, I backed it down to 225 and got that for 9 and then another forced rep.
Okay.
So 9 plus 1. That's kind of how my first exercise went. And then by then the whole, I had a full pump from right underneath my clavicle all the way down to where the pec ties in and the pec minor. So and I think I had that because I did all that warm up work. It took me about 30 minutes to get through that first exercise. And while I'm doing that, I was drinking my intra, hydrating, I have EAAs, create all, the same stuff everybody else is drinking, but you're getting all that intra workout in you. Blood's flowing, the pump, is starting. And then from there, and we'll still touch on the rest of the workout, but I felt that the rest of my session went really well, and I had a good mind-muscle connection because of the warm-up I took with that first exercise. So I took, 6 warm-up sets, 6 or 7 warm-up sets before I did a working set.
Yeah. Yeah, I do a lot of warm-ups, too, to get where I want to be because I'm doing something similar. Like a lot of people are doing a heavy set and then a back-off set. That's been kind of my common theme. I'm not going by my workout from Tuesday because I'm still just coming back. But I can tell you this, that learning to be strong on the pressing movements has been a goal that I've set at the end of 2019. And I've told this story a couple times on the podcasts, but it was David Smith who saw my dumbbell press, and he pointed out to me, he was like, hey, that's really good. I shot a video, and it was like the 100-pound dumbbells, and it was like all I had. And it was when I was out at Ron's gym, out at West Coast Iron, and I was all pumped up, and I got this set up, and I shot a video, and I posted it, and I'm like, yeah. And I did say, now I'm going to try to stay at this weight and keep working with it, and try to get more efficient, more effective, be safer with it, all that. But his comment was, that's really nice. It looks like you're working on your lockout. He's like, I was like, motherfucker, this is a full set, But right. The thing was I wasn't using a full range of motion. So I had to back off. At the beginning of the quarantine, I was training from home with light dumbbells. That allowed me to actually start working on that full range of motion. Well, we can add video to this, so I'll show some video to demonstrate on the range of motion I use. But I had learned a lot from David Smith on making sure I get that full range of motion. And with that came really an understanding of, as you said, the importance of having like good mobility, good flexibility in my body. And that went beyond just the pecs, like all the supporting stuff that goes to that, like into the ribs, into the lats, my shoulders, everything. So I've worked on a lot of stretches between training just to try to be as strong as I can. I think that I think that chest training is one of the more dangerous exercises for a bodybuilder. I know a lot of guys who've torn a pec, and especially as you start getting older, if you want to continue to be strong, and my goal's been to be as strong as I possibly can be, I've wanted to really make sure that I take my time and warm up. I want to make sure that I've got all that mobility stuff. So for me, a lot of the mobility is before I train on other days, a couple days a week where I'm actually doing like mobility stretches and massage and stuff like that. Lately, I've been starting with that big key lift. We talked on chest or on back training that we'll do a pull down first, and then we'll go to a row movement. And the row movement is that big meat and potatoes exercise. Lately, I've been going straight to that big meat and potatoes exercise on chest. In the past, I would pre-fatigue by going to one all-out set on the pec deck and then one back-off set. And I found that to work really well. I'll get to that later because we both have the common issue of being shoulder dominant. And we did want to kind of touch on some of the common issues that people deal with. So we'll get to those common issues later. And I'll talk a little bit more about pre-fatiguing and how that helped me to help grow the chest. But now lately, I just go straight into those dumbbell presses. And like you, I'll do the same thing where I really take my time trying to warm up. And I'm watching my form. I'm using an incline dumbbell. That's my favorite exercise. And I'm making sure that I get that full range of motion. I think what I've learned, and like I said, I've talked to David Smith about this a lot. For me, it's important that I engage that muscle from the very start of the movement. So I bring it to the bottom where I want to be, and then I make sure, it sounds like common sense. I don't think everybody thinks about it, though, is making sure that you're engaging, you're pushing that with that pec muscle, from the very beginning. I've known a lot of people who end up having really good shoulders, really good triceps, and, no chest. And I think that that's, from what I've analyzed working with some of my clients that have been in that position, that's what I've seen, where they aren't engaging from the pec first. And I think that that's the number one thing you can do if you have a weak chest, is to make sure that you are engaging from it. So I'll start really light. I've worked up to the 125-pound dumbbells. It's actually 130-pound dumbbells if you count the handle. But that's been my best up until I had gotten sick. And that was a couple months ago. So I'm rebuilding at this point. But if I were to warm up with the 25s, I'll go to the 40s for 8 reps, 10 reps. And then I'll go to the 60s or 65s for, 4 or 5 reps, and really take my time on those. 85s for, 2 reps, the 100s for 2 reps. And then from there, if I was going to like 115, I'd be good to go. Maybe if I'm going to 125, I might need to pick up a little bit more and just do 1 or 2 reps with a slightly lighter dumbbell, just to make sure that I'm ready to go. And for me, I want to make sure, this is what's critical for me. I want to make sure that my form now is 100% on whatever I'm doing. And I really control my negatives. They're pretty slow. I think they're pretty slow. Like, I could go faster on them, but I get a lot out of that, and I feel like it keeps me safer. I could move faster and use a heavier poundage, but I would rather have that control and get as much as I can out of a slightly less heavy weight. I feel that it's going to be just as effective for me than having gone heavier. Like I said, I'll work up to 1 heavy set. I try not to go lower than 8 reps. That's where I feel comfortable. I do think that chest is a muscle group that you can go slightly lower reps in than some other body parts and get a good workout with it and get some good growth. But for me, if I start getting down into like the 6s And then that means maybe if I lifted something that was too heavy, I might only get 4 or 5. For me, that's a little bit too much of a risk now in my 40s. So I want to make sure I can at least get 6 at all time and shoot for 8, work toward 10, something like that. But like I'm hitting a set for about 8. And then after that, I maybe will reduce it slightly and then try to get just as many reps as I can, which, if I were to get the 125s for, let's say, 7, then I might drop to the 115s or even the 110s. Hell, on some days, maybe even the 105s, and just really work on perfect form and get as many reps as I possibly can. Maybe I get 13 on that. I don't know. But that's where I'm at. And like I said, sometimes in the past, I've used pec deck. Sometimes I should say religiously used that. But now I just go straight into that big main exercise for me.
Yeah. I'm glad you touched on that. I'm the same, because with back, we both like that one movement before to really almost get us mentally ready for the meat and potato movement. And then with chest, we both like to get into the meat and potato movement right away and then just spend a good bit of time warming up. I mean, my whole session's probably an hour 15, and the first 30 minutes is on warm-ups for one exercise.
Yeah. Now, are you training chest?
I mean?
Is chest by itself, or are you training that with other body parts?
It's by itself right now.
Okay.
We've had it that way for a while, so we split up chest and shoulders. I've done push-pull legs. I mean, I did that for years.
Yeah.
I've done DC, so I've done chest in a bunch of different ways, and actually the best progress I've made is when it's been by itself.
Okay.
On this 5-day body part split we've been running for months, probably since we were doing 2-a-days.
Nice.
So yeah, that was one thing I wanted to touch on that you said. And then where are you at with hand, not hand, you're on dumbbells, but for me, hand placement, I used to go wider, and I think I went wider because it gave me the ability to move more weight.
Okay.
So now I've moved my hands in, and I'm trying to get less elbow flare. So I've moved my hands in to a point where I can my elbows aren't at 90. They're not tucked completely, obviously, because I'm on a barbell, but I am turning them downwards slightly when I'm pressing.
Yeah.
That allows me, because you touched on pressing with the pec out of the bottom.
Yeah.
I think I didn't do that for years. That's why I pressed wrong, because I used momentum from coming down, and then I kind of used like an elastic recoil where you would just like let go of that last 4 inches and then use that that inertia to go back up.
Sure.
And it totally bypassed the pec and then went all to the shoulder. So my front delts got great, innervation, but the pecs were just being bypassed. So now a key for me is just to try to feel at the bottom of my warm-ups, not with a heavy weight, obviously, but at the bottom of my warm-ups, I might like hang there.
Okay.
And really feel where my pec ties in. I want to feel that activate and then press.
Huh.
I'll probably do that with my, my first 3 warm-up sets when the weight's really light.
Yeah.
I just want to feel that outer pec fully engage, fully stretch, and then drive it up real slow. I don't even try to explode out of the hole on some of those reps. I try to just move it up with, a good pace, but I'm not trying to explode. That's for the working set.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned the negatives. I'm pretty big on negatives. Dusty and I count for each other, but with the warm-up sets, I try to be extra with the negatives. Like I'll take them really slow just to establish that mind muscle. And that kind of gives me a little bit of leeway when I'm grinding out some reps on the working set, that the negative may or may not speed up, but if it does, it's okay, because I think I've established that mind muscle and everything's engaged. Yeah. And I'm connected, so I don't feel like I'm cheating myself.
I think for anybody who is listening to this because they're genuinely trying to improve their chest training, and I'm thinking of especially like a newer guy, maybe somebody who hasn't even broken their chest training down the way we are right now. I think that what I've noticed personally is when I first started analyzing my training like this, my negatives had to be extra slow. My pauses, because I do a pause at the bottom, my pause at the bottom had to be like an extra long pause in order to be like, okay, I'm engaged, now go. The longer I've done it, the faster I've gotten. And if you're to watch it, the pause might not even look like an actual long, like it's not a long pause anymore, but it's a long enough pause that I can get that engagement going. I would say exaggerating those things in the beginning is okay. You know, you may sacrifice some weight, but it's okay to really take your time and be like, come down to the bottom and then, you know, engage and be like, okay, did I engage? Oh yeah, I'm engaging. And then begin to press on that negative, really feeling that negative and you know, really kind of, like you said, learning how to make sure that you're getting what you want out of it is really what it comes down to. And then with time, you know, if it does speed up, you've put the foundational work in to make sure that you got what you need. You still always have to check yourself and be like, am I going too fast? But you know, that's something I've noticed, is that my speed has picked up some, but the engagement is quicker.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think as it becomes, repetition leads to, well, I guess you could say experience, but it just, you have more control the more repetitions you've done.
Yeah.
So over time, you're able to pick that speed up a little more each time. John Meadows is a great one I always reference because he doesn't, he's not really brutally slow with his negatives, but I think that's because he's got such an established mind muscle connection because he's been doing this for decades that he doesn't need to be as slow.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I think I even touched on in the first episode, there's some exercises still where I have to go slow intentionally just to keep the mind muscle because it's stronger than it was for me, but it's not to that point where I can blast through reps.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, one thing I wanted to mention too, when you talk about, we're talking about making sure you're engaged, you said, and not really blasting up until you got to your working set. One interesting thing that I learned a bunch of interesting things from him that I learned from Dave was he explained it as that you want to come out of the hole cautiously and add momentum as you get the bar up or as you get the dumbbells up. That we are in our most vulnerable position. If you're listening to this and you're like, hey, I'm going to retool my training, and you don't bring the bar or the dumbbell all the way down, and now you decide you're going to try to go a little bit deeper with it, you don't want to just drop to the bottom and then just rip out of it, because that is a vulnerable place. Like I said, I think that, in my opinion, chest training can be a very dangerous thing for bodybuilders. We can get hurt there. You can tear a pec. You would not be the first. So I think there is an amount of caution, which I wanted to mention, that I use coming out of the hole, and then I add to it, like step on the pedal, and then floor it as my shoulder's engaging, as that triceps engaging, and then drive through, with it.
Yeah, that's a good point to make, because I think, we've probably used the word explode multiple times already.
Yeah.
And when we say explode, we mean through the muscle. We're generating all that force through the muscle we're trying to target. If I wanted to just explode with my full body, I could throw the barbell through the ceiling if that was my goal to explode. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
When we say explode, we're saying generate all, as you're lowering, you're loading that muscle, loading that muscle, loading that muscle. And then from the bottom, you're going to hit that quick pause and then generate all the force from your pecs on up. Drive your back into the pad, whatever you're on, and then, push it up. But we're not saying explode as in use everything underneath the bar to get that bar up, right?
Yeah.
That would be A to B training, and we're talking from the perspective of bodybuilding.
So what happens next after you're done with that main, heavy lift? You're using the barbell press. I'm using the dumbbell incline. Where you go from there?
So following Tuesday's workout, I went to the incline hammer strength. So to preface, I don't lock out on my barbell presses. I lose the connection to my chest if I lock out, and my front delt or my shoulder will roll over.
Yeah.
And it just, it's not beneficial for me. So I go up, my range of motion is as high as I can get the bar where I still feel tension on my chest. When I don't feel that anymore is where it stops. So from an outsider looking in, it might be like, oh, he's not doing full reps, but I'm just doing the reps that are keeping the tension on my chest. I don't want to fully lock out and put my triceps, lock my arms out and then have the weight be on my front delts.
Yeah, that's one thing David does do I know because he's talked about like pressing through, and I don't do that either. I still have been stopping shy. For me, that's what I feel most comfortable with. And really, I can say that with most exercises I do, from the time that the weight is unracked to the time I rack it, there's tension on the muscle. And there's no point where I'm actually like completely locked out anywhere, I guess. I feel the same thing. I get a lot of bicep tendonitis, and when I completely lock out, I definitely feel that there.
Yeah, maybe it's because we both have pretty long arms. Maybe that contributes. Leverages contribute. Dave's he's a crazy strong presser, right? So
yeah, he's crazy strong on everything.
Yeah, I mean, he would know better than us of what's the right way or the wrong way. I just try to do the way that where I keep tension on the muscle that I'm trying to work, and the results are there that my chest finally started growing when I stopped doing the things I was doing. So I follow that. It's a very bro science approach, but I'm not telling you don't lock out. I'm just saying if you are, maybe audit your training. But what I'm getting at is next up's incline hammer strength. On this one, I will lock out because,
okay.
I don't, that thing that happens on the barbell where the shoulder rolls over, it doesn't happen on the incline hammer strength. I think because I'm in a more fixed position and I don't have to worry about stability.
Yeah.
All I have to do is, come down. I keep my elbows tucked. So I set the seat real low, almost as low as it can go.
Yeah, yeah.
Because a lot of those machines, especially hammer strength brand, they can cause like a pinch in my shoulder for me. So I'll drop the seat all the way down. The grip I take is one thumb length away from the end of each handle.
That's exactly what I do. Everything you've explained so far, when I use that machine, I try to do the same. Low seat.
Really?
Yeah, hands right in there. Yeah.
The hand placement I have to give credit to Dante on because I used to probably be wider because I could move more weight and I was chasing the logbook. When I first got into DC, I was very focused on beating my numbers by any means possible, even if it meant shit form. So Dante, I think he put a video out or he sent something to Dusty. I can't remember, but since then I've been thumbs from the end of the handles. That's where my grip goes. And then from there, I feel like I can really drive and I push my back into the pad and then I squeeze everything from here to here.
Nice.
Inward and almost try to make it touch my chin.
Yeah.
And on that one, I'll lock out. So my thinking is that I'm getting the overall load and gravity and a lot more stretch with the incline barbell. And then when I go to incline hammer strength, I'm still getting some stretch, but my main emphasis on that is the lockout. So I'll still take it as low as I can before my shoulders take over, but I'm really trying to drive my back into the pad, and I want to finish up here.
Yeah, yeah.
Almost like I'm trying to squeeze my wrists and elbows together.
You know what I like doing that type of movement on? We talked about this machine before. All around, all the different Metro Detroit powerhouse gyms have the Magnum brand incline press machines. It's kind of like a slightly cheaper incline press machine, and it's converging handles. And yeah, just the way that my hands come up, it's like I can get this drive and this squeeze through the pecs, while completely locking it out at the top. I've done a movement you're talking about with that machine and liked it a lot.
I love that machine. If my gym had one, I would use that exclusively.
Anything
that mimics that, because it's like a 75-degree angle with the bench, and it's almost like that little gap where it hits is like exactly what I'm missing in my chest. That fullness right here.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I'm able to do one of those machines, if I'm traveling, I love it. So I think it's called like a super high incline press. I don't know the exact
from
name
Hammer,
of it, but Hammer has one, and then
Yeah.
Magnum has one. I think Legend has one too with the converging handles.
Yeah.
They're nice. They're very, especially I feel like with guys with long arms, they're just built for us.
How many sets do you do with that exercise?
2 working. So
Okay.
with that one, I wanted to get 2 working sets of 8 to 10, and the goal was to hold the same weight with the second set or go up weight if I felt that it was an easy 10. It wasn't an easy 10, so I kept the same weight. My goal was just to match the reps, which I did. And I got, 3 plates on each side for 10 and then 3 plates on each side for 9, which I'm okay with. Warm-up wise, it was just 1 plate each side. And the warm-up's already done for me at this point. I just need to touch the weight, so it's nothing's a surprise to me.
Yeah.
So it was just, 5 reps with 1 plate on each side, 3 reps with 2 plate on each side, and to 3, and all right, I'm ready to go. By this time, like I've put down 3/4 of my intra, which is 1.5 liters of fluid. I'm checked in. I just had my meat and potato movements out of the way, so now everything else is just icing on the cake.
Yeah.
And this is where I just try to really, push blood volume and training as hard as I can with each rep.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I feel like what we're doing isn't too dissimilar. I have it's a company called F-Lite. It's a chest press with converging handles. When I bought it, I actually looked at, the guy had both the incline and the flat version. I generally feel better on incline machines, but for some reason the flat machine felt great. And you can incline the bench slightly. It goes up moderately, but the higher you go, the less clearance you have to get under the pad, under the handles. So
Okay.
I have it on a slight incline, and I keep my elbows in. What I'm looking for on this second exercise now is more like to flush the blood full of muscle, or excuse me, flush the muscle full of blood is what I'm attempting to do. I've gotten my big scary lift out of the way where I've really challenged myself and I've done something I've never done before. And at this state, I want to use a weight that I can get, a ballpark 10 reps with now, 10 to even 12. Maybe I'll even go higher on a random occasion. But at this point, though, I really like to just flush blood into the muscle, and I'll do about 2 sets of that, to failure. Both of them are to, absolute failure. But at this point, it's not as much of a challenge for me. Like the stress is off of me for this exercise now. I feel a lot more relaxed, and I'm obviously pumped from having done the first exercises. And from here now, it's more about, like I said, getting to like finishing the muscle off.
Mm-hmm.
I may use that occasionally. I'll do. I also have a bar, a Kabuki Strength Cadillac bar, which has neutral grip handles on it. Occasionally I'll use that instead, but I'm thinking the same thing. It's not like a heavy be-all, end-all weight. This is now a movement where I am just working on like trying to get more out of the muscle in that, around top 10 reps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very similar to how we approach things very similar.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I knew we did in some ways, but I didn't realize it was to that extent.
Yeah, well, I've followed your progression with the incline dumbbell because I know you were posting that one pretty heavily. Just the ability to get strong, I think, is key.
Yeah.
And for anyone listening, like our end goal is still, maximum strength with proper form while training like bodybuilders. When we had, I know I had to lighten the load, and I think you're the same. I had to completely go back to square one and reinvent my press almost.
Yeah.
To press with chest in mind versus just overall weight on the bar or weight on the machine. But then from there, once we established it, the goal became the same again, is to get as strong as we can.
Yeah.
Pushing for strength in every movement. So that's still the mindset I carry. I will. Not so much right now, but even in the off season, like I'll use 5s on an incline hammer. I'll use 10s. I'll use those little weights just to progress any way I can, because they add up. That's what gets you to a 45 is 5, 10s, 25s, right? So
absolutely.
Keep in mind that anybody listening, especially newer people, like once you do standardize your form, which you should just attempt to do from the beginning, don't do it like we did and do it wrong for years and then have to go backwards and then go forward again.
Right. But learn now.
Yeah, strength is a stronger muscle is a bigger muscle.
Yeah, no question, man. Do you do another exercise from here then?
Yeah, so I go from incline hammer. Right next door to it is the decline hammer. It's awesome because I just take my weights right off the incline hammer, start putting them on the decline hammer.
Nice.
That one is, I still train for strength, but with the way I position my body into that machine, there's only so strong I'm going to get because it kind of can be a stability one. So
Huh.
I drop the seat pretty low. I go same grip, thumb away, and then I'll slide my hands out ever so slightly a little bit more, so I'm a little wider.
Yeah.
Just somewhere where I can feel that lower pec stretch as I'm at the bottom. Now this one, I put both my legs in front of the bottom of the seat, and my legs, the seat's lower, but it's not all the way down, so my feet actually don't touch when I put my legs in front. And then I'll cross my feet, and then from there I try to scoot my butt forward, so I'm not all the way flush against the back of the pad. My butt's forward, and I'm almost at like an angle now.
Yeah.
My upper back's against the pad, and then when I press, if I'm in the stretch here, my head's forward slightly, and then from here, as I press forward, again, same thing as I did on the incline hammer, I drive everything back, and I try to lock out and squeeze those pecs together.
Okay.
And this one, I'm really trying to feel everything contract. So on this one, every rep has to have a 2-count contraction.
Okay,
or a
nice.
2-count pause at the contraction.
Yeah.
So I can really emphasize finishing that. That's where my mindset is with this machine in particular. And I don't do anything else. I don't do decline barbell. I don't do a decline fly. It's only decline hammers, the only thing I'll do. And for some reason, I think maybe because my whole chest is already activated by this point. Like I get a lot of activation in the upper pec too. Like I feel like everything's coming across and really squeezing up.
Okay.
So I'm feeling everything from here up into here.
Yeah.
And this one, 2 work sets, maybe the same weight, maybe different. They're both to failure, but 10 to 12. So 2 plates aside usually will be my first set, and then 3 plates aside will be my second set. Again, I could go heavier, but I wouldn't be able to do what I just mentioned. I wouldn't be able to get full lockout and get that 2-count contraction on each rep.
Okay.
And that's my ultimate goal with this one, is to really make sure I'm sticking that contraction and holding it. And when I'm holding it, I'm not just holding it there and like chilling thinking about what I'm going to have for lunch.
Yeah.
I'm actively thinking about squeezing the hell out of my pecs on each rep, and then come back down. And it's almost like you're loading up and then driving, loading up and then driving. So I think we touched on the first episode, like these sessions are very mentally stimulating. So, this would kind of differentiate between someone that goes to the gym just to work out for general health, and then like what we're talking about is training.
Yeah.
It's a mental stimulus just as much as it is physical. And if your head's not in it, if you're, thinking about some other shit outside of the gym, your session's going to suffer because of that. So
yeah,
that's a big thing too, is to, leave any external bullshit that you got going on in your own personal life at the door when you walk in. I mean, I'm only there an hour 15. I can, whatever problems I have or whatever else I have to do is still going to be there when I get done.
You can have 23 other hours of drama. Just take
Exactly.
Yeah, and you know what too, you're right, because I think too, here's I think where an issue can come in with, if you were training like me, that second exercise that I'm getting into, it would be easier to unplug. When I say that the stress is gone, I'm still very focused on what I'm doing, and I'm still only doing a couple sets on this movement. So I am making sure that I stay plugged in. I've seen it where, you get through the heavy stuff and now it's all fun and games, and I do want to have fun with my workout. I want to keep it enjoyable, but, it is important to continue staying, plugged in. For me, that's all I do. I only do 2 exercises because I'm training push-pull legs. And so from there, I'm going to 2 shoulder movements and then 1 tricep movement. So it works out a little bit different for me at this stage. That's generally what I do. Right now, coming back from being ill, I am just training 1 body part. But that workout's not even worth talking about on a podcast. It is not podcast worthy.
So when you're in your full push-pull leg swing, are you rotating chest exercises that you're doing session to session? Are you sticking with that same 2?
Depends on how I'm feeling. There are going to be times where if I'm getting really strong and I'm like, hey, I'm going to push this out so that I hit chest again in 5 days, and I want to try to beat that number, there may be a time that I may be able to do that. Otherwise, I am rotating it. I mentioned having the kabuki bar. I just got that, but before that, I'd use a barbell just standard barbell, and I may do an incline press and work on getting stronger with that. For me, I'm not a very strong barbell incline or barbell presser in general. I feel like my shoulders have seen their better days. I have to be careful with it. So it's almost like my less hard workout, you know. I'll do barbell movements more for like 12 reps to failure instead of 8 reps to failure with the dumbbells. So it's not as hard of a workout, though I am still working on getting just as much engagement out of it. It's not the fun workout, put it that, you know, the way, it's not the one where I'm like really overloading it. So yeah, I would say there is a level of intuitiveness on how often I am pushing, but I would say in general there's going to be like one more intense chest workout and then one less intense chest workout where I'm not going to like the absolute ends doing something I've never done before.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I found, you know what it is that I found splitting it up helps me a lot. I was doing 5-day split for that last prep. You and I both ended up at out in Grand Rapids for the Western. That prep, my shoulder was really bothering me on my presses. So what I ended up doing was doing 2 chest exercises one day, and then coming back on my shoulder day and doing 2 more chest exercises. And I found that if I were to only limit it to 2 exercises, my shoulder didn't bother me. So I could still hit my full chest workout, which had been 4 exercises at the time, but split it up through the week. And then what I discovered was I continued doing that after the prep, and I did everything else 1 body part a week. And then I thought, okay, I'm looking in the mirror, my chest grew. Like, I changed nothing else. Nothing else was different. The only variable I changed was how I trained my chest, the frequency and volume. And I saw the results from that. So that's when I decided to myself, well, what if I were to do everything that way? And slowly over the next 2 years, I transitioned over to training push-pull legs. And then my volume or my frequency started getting to be, you know, a little bit more spread out too. I don't do 2 times a week. That would crush me. But I would say about every 5 days, I train a body part.
Yeah. Similar. Just I don't split it, and there's one more movement I do, which I'll get to. But
Oh, you do?
yeah, because I hit everything. Every body part gets hit every 7. So
Yeah.
we're on a fixed schedule right now. So we have the same 2 off days every week.
Okay.
So everything's getting touched every 7. I mean, obviously that, you know, other muscles come into play on different days, but so I hit chest on Tuesdays. I'm not going to hit it again until next Tuesday.
Right.
So for me, that's when I found with push pull legs, same as you, like the frequency once I got to a certain level of strength, the frequency was too short. I needed, even though the volume was low, I still needed more time.
Yeah.
And that might be my own recovery capabilities. Everyone's different, but you know, I can really hammer the muscle on one day and still train the way I want with low volume, high intensity. And then it's almost like peace of mind knowing like, all right, even if I feel sore as hell for the next 3 days, I still have ample time to feel good by the time I have to do this again.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that 4th movement I run to is a flat dumbbell.
Okay.
And this one's all about the stretch. For me, I like to finish with the movement and the stretch. I got that from, obviously in DC, you finish chest training with a force loaded stretch.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we incorporate into this movement. So every rep has a 5 count stretch in the hole. So for me, that allows, because I probably couldn't connect with dumbbell flies for years. I did them, but I had no idea, like they were not hitting my chest at all. They were just, you know, right across that front delt. Just really didn't feel good. And I'm not terribly strong on them. So what I've done to make this movement work for me is I don't try to get real wide. I keep it almost like a 90, and I just try to keep that chest up, thoracic spine extended, and let the elbows drop. It's almost like a fly press, but it's not a full fly press.
Okay.
But that 5 count in the hole allows me to make sure, like we talked about in the beginning, where I'm engaging pec. I'm not letting my shoulders hop up and I'm not holding the weight on my front delt. I'm still down here. The chest is stretching. And then, like you mentioned, I'm focused on driving up with my pecs versus just moving the weight out of the hole.
Yeah.
So we'll do 2 sets of that to finish it off, 8 to 10 reps, but with a 5 count hold in each rep, that's a minute under tension.
That's a lot. Yeah.
And that's how you're finishing. And then you're also finishing by, getting the benefits of loaded stretching post training, which is just going to help with hypertrophy. So after that one, I mean, my chest is fried. I couldn't do another movement even if I wanted to. So, 4 movements is our cap, sometimes 3, if we're really not even, if we tax it on the other ones, but 4 will be the absolute max. And then, so with shoulder training, since I don't do that on this day, we don't really do any shoulder presses. So I'm kind of the same as you, as I've got some spongy shoulders, and I'm trying to keep longevity in mind. So we might throw in 1 shoulder press. And if we do, it's after we do a lot, it's after 3 movements. So our strength is already going to be compromised, and we're not training that movement to all out like we would, on chest.
Yeah.
We're only going to be as strong as we could be for being the 4th movement of that day. So that's how I'm able to keep my shoulders intact for pressing, is by putting 75 to 80% of my pressing work is only for chest, because that's what I need over delts.
Yeah.
And then, obviously everyone has different needs. So I'm not telling everyone you have to do it this way. This is what I've customized to my, little tweaks and injuries that I've had to work through, and to my programming. And Scott's done the same thing. But the point is we're trying to get you to look deeper into your training, other than just thinking like, oh yeah, I train hard, I check that box, I'm all good.
Yeah.
What's my next cycle? Right?
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by the ability to dive into our training, the fact that you and I can have a genuine conversation about our training sessions and really, get into the X's and O's of it. Like that's the stuff I love. And if you're that hyper focused on your training, anything you take cycle wise is going to have a positive effect.
Absolutely. And you'll probably be able to handle taking less, if you're getting that much out of your training. And look, what we're talking about too, we did get one criticism on our last show. Somebody said, look, you don't need to do all this. You don't need to think about it. You just get in there, you lift weights, you lift heavy, and you go eat food. That's bodybuilding. Bodybuilding isn't analyzing everything and breaking it down. But the reality is that after you might not need to do what we're doing. That may work for you. It may work for you forever, and if that's the case, more power to you. But if it doesn't, then this is the next route, is thinking about, well, if I am pressing this and my chest isn't growing, why is that? And there's a lot of people out there that have that very issue. So I thought before we wrapped this thing up, we could maybe talk about what are some of the common issues that we see. If somebody's listening to this, they're 50 minutes in, that means that I think they may need some help with their chest training. Hopefully they've picked a few things up. One of the common issues I think we've talked about is the shoulder thing,
Shoulder mobility, 100%.
Yeah, and pressing from the shoulders, not using the pecs. I think that's all I did from the start. And like my first contest, my delts had popped out, but my chest was just non-existent still, it's by comparison.
When you started out, were you naturally a stronger presser on shoulder movements than
Absolutely.
chest?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And do you think that you gravitated towards that because you had a natural strength towards it? So you might have wanted to go in on that more? Because I know I was the same way. Shoulder pressing came easier than anything with I could probably military press as much as I could bench or incline, back when I was first starting out. So,
dude, yeah,
I wanted to go in on that movement. That was like, all right, I can at least look semi-respectable on this. So
yeah.
Let's blow these delts up.
I think that's the case with everyone. You find something that you're good at, and that's what you keep doing. Yeah, man. I remember training shoulders as a middleweight with a guy who was a strong man, and we were pressing the same dumbbells. Like, and I
That's
felt
crazy.
good about that, you know? But in
Hmm.
reality, though, man, my chest was I think at the time I was incline pressing 90s and I was shoulder pressing the 130s, a seated shoulder press. But it's like that was the heaviest I got, and I could do sets of, 4 sets of that, for good reps too. Like, we're not talking like 5 reps, we're talking 8 reps. But yeah, my
Hmm.
chest was way behind. I think you make a really good point, man. At the time, though, I didn't change that. I was just happy I could press something that was 130 pounds, you know?
Yeah, I remember 100-pound dumbbells were like, that's almost like what it was like to get to 200 pounds for me. It was like if I could do something with the 100-pound dumbbells,
Yeah,
I'm somebody. I'm in the triple digit club.
yeah, yeah.
I'm doing the hundreds. That's because that's the end of the stat, or that's closer to the end of the stack. That's like the hierarchy of the gym. I'm going to be respected because I'm using hundreds. So absolutely, I think I fell into that trap. I think that's interesting that you did too. That's funny that we were both naturally strong with shoulders, so we decided to go after that one and just kind of chest was an afterthought.
No, what I ended
Um,
up learning was we talked about it a little bit before, was uh, uh, pre-fatiguing. My coach, I started training with him after that first show, and every day we did chest, we would start with the pec deck. And I could not do as much on the barbell bench press after that as I could if I gone in fresh. But it made a difference. I've talked to Scott Stevenson about it on some Muscle Minds episodes. You do get more overall activation in your workout if you were to start with that. So I found that to be my workaround. I didn't focus on better engagement like we're talking about. I just focused on pec deck first.
and do you find that, I guess, if you had to pick one or the other, which way would you say is the better way, or does there have to be a better way? Is either one an option?
I think that learning the engagement was probably a smarter move, you know?
Hmm.
I probably could have avoided some shoulder issues because I still was doing the same stuff I did before. But I do think it helped because I did get more activation out of the pec. And then when I
Okay.
went into those pressing movements, they were already warmed up and I could already feel it, you know? So I do think that it did make a difference.
So it almost like you coached yourself in the ability to have the mind muscle down the road where you're at
Almost.
now, in a
Yeah.
way, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I did something similar. I had a strength block where I did cable crossovers as my opener,
Yeah.
just for that very purpose. Was to I deemed it as like I was getting blood in the pecs, I was getting activated, all that.
Yeah.
And now that I don't think it was wrong, but I think there's a better way to do it,
I agree.
and that's kind of the way we're talking about. I think you shouldn't do a movement long term. You shouldn't be doing a movement first that's going to take away from your overall strength, because what have we covered in this is that a stronger muscle is a bigger muscle, and if I'm compromising my strength on my press, because I mean we're if you have a press versus a fly, I mean a press is how you build a chest. Look at, I mean, success leaves clues. Anybody with a big chest, they have some impressive pressing movements, right? So um, it's good that we were able to find a way to activate the chest and learn.
Yeah.
But long story short is that the best way to do it is to um, learn the overall movement, learn the overall engagement of the pecs, and then start with your press.
I can't argue with that, man. If you could retrain yourself to get that activation out of the pec first, I think that would be huge. I think another thing that I see with chest is overall tightness being an issue, and I see
Mm-hmm.
that with a ton of people. Now I lean forward when we're sitting here, you know, and everything's kind of coming forward, but in reality, when I'm sitting natural, I'm more like this.
Okay.
And the thing that you want to see, like I learned this from Dr. Ken Kanakin. He said, like, look at your hands. If you're sitting there and your hand is turned forward, if you could see the back of your hand, then your chest has pulled you that way. You get the, you
Yeah.
get the bodybuilder Neanderthal ape look. You know what I mean? You don't want that, and we end up having a lot of issues, I think, in bodybuilding with tight pecs. You know, we're
Mm-hmm.
pulling forward, that those muscles get tight and that they're pulling you this way. That can cause all sorts of issues like the shoulder issue I've talked about. That's in part responsible. And I think that if you can keep that stuff loose, you could definitely get stronger. You can stay healthier while you're doing it, and long term will have a bigger chest.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point to touch on. I definitely have to credit to a lot of the body work and the maintenance I do on my body is as my mobility has increased, it's allowed my range of motion to increase,
Yeah.
and that's allowed my muscle to have a bigger threshold to grow. If I look at videos of me pressing 4 years ago versus today, the range of motion is probably half,
Yeah.
and the chest development was probably half or less. So I think the more we're talking about activation, in order to get activation, you have to have the ability to get to those points of activation. So I know I see a PT, I have a guy that does some body tempering on me. I've worked with plenty of people in Michigan before I moved out here. I look at that as like, some of it was for pain and I actually had injuries, but other parts of it was like, this is an investment in my training performance.
Yeah.
And I know you saw her name Becky?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Becky
saw
Wilson.
her. Did that translate into you having better range of motion with your pressing?
So with
Or
my
was
shoulder
that for an
issues,
injury?
well, here's the deal. With my shoulder issues that I had, I stopped doing a lot of pressing for a while. And I got to the point where it's like, if I went to this gym, I can use that machine. If I go to this gym, I can use that machine. And then I'll add a fly to that. And that's what my chest workout is. That's where it went for a while. Having seen, if I used a dumbbell, even like 25, 30 pounds, like light, I would feel it in that bicep tendon, man. It would scream at me, and I just couldn't do it. I saw Becky, and the very next day, I was doing sets of 90s on dumbbell press, flat dumbbell press. So it was a huge overnight difference.
That's intense, yeah.
And that's what I'm getting at too, man, with that tightness, because I do see a lot of the young guys that are, especially like you're getting geared up, you're new into bodybuilding, you have started to grow some muscle. I think one of the first things I see is those pecs get overly tight. They're pulling you forward, and it's going to affect your ability to continue progressing from there,
No, absolutely. I think, and I guarantee there's some people that are going to listen to this and they're going to have that aha moment where it's like, I am that guy. I am the guy who is 25-pound presses are a grind for me. And like you said, you had one session with her and we're moving 90s. And how many people are just like, they've accepted that that's where they're at.
Sure.
I've had that with certain injuries, not related to the chest, but like I just accepted like this is as much activation as I can get. This is life. And then I got fixed, and I'm like, it's almost like a reawakening. You're like, holy hell, I have all this range of motion that I haven't been able to tap into for X amount of time. So that's what I'm getting at with the body work. Is if you are listening to this and you're that guy that's like, you feel 135 on a bar, not in a good way, and you're someone who used to be able to press more.
Yeah.
That's your body's telling you something. Something is not opening up, and there's a blockage, there's a trigger point somewhere that needs to be released. And that's what a lot of these experts can do. If you have someone in your area, I mean, everyone's different. I'm blessed to be where I'm at in Arizona. We have a lot of good people out here, but I mentioned that when it comes to training because I wouldn't even be training the way I train if it wasn't for the bodywork people I've worked with. So I look at any money on that as an investment in your performance.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. Well, listen, let's wrap this thing up while we're here. I think we shared some really good information. Hopefully some light bulbs get turned on here. Like I said at the beginning, I have people who are interested in learning, what do you do? How do you do this? And so hopefully being able to sit down with you and being able to have these conversations, we can answer some of those questions that those guys have. And, they might be able to get a little bit more out of their training. If you were to tell people to do one thing today to change their training, what one thing could they do, Tommy, to improve, next time they walk in the gym and train chest?
I would say with whatever you're going to do, pause everything for a full, at least one count in the stretch of every rep. And that will show you, you will learn right then and there if you're activating your chest out of the bottom of the movement or not.
I like that.
Or if you're bypassing it completely, right? I
I
mean, you
like that.
touched on it. I did the same thing. I blasted through the chest. I completely bypassed activating my chest out of the bottom for years.
Hmm.
So that's almost like a litmus test. Is do that. Do it with your warm ups. Obviously, don't do it with a weight. You know, you're probably going to have to lower your numbers,
Yeah.
but test yourself. If you're at the bottom of a press and let me get my camera here.
There you go.
And your shoulder wants to from that pause position, it goes up and then you go up, then that's telling you something. You're not getting the full activation you could, or you're not keeping the tension you could. And that might not even be a tightness issue here. That might be something in the thoracic. That might be something in the tear, like something back. Everything can kind of seatbelt each other. That's why it's.
Yep.
The point is just to kind of turn that light bulb on and make you think. If you are someone who's struggling to develop a chest, and I think everything kind of falls into two. Like there's some people who the first time they started benching, they grew a chest, right?
Yep.
And then there's guys like us that didn't. So I think you're either going to go one or two ways, and maybe you're in the middle and you want to get more chest development. This whole thing is kind of just meant to help you turn that light bulb on and think and audit your training and really ask yourself, am I training the muscle or am I just training a movement? Am I training my chest, or am I training everything that has to do with my upper body just to say I'm training my chest? You know what I mean? I want people to turn that light bulb on and really get in depth with how they're analyzing their training.
Yes, sir. I couldn't agree more. If people want to reach out to you, Tommy, where's the best way to follow along with what you're doing and follow along with your prep?
Right now it's Instagram. I have a website being developed, but
Nice.
It takes its time. So Instagram, Stiles2, Stiles. And then, obviously I train with Dusty, so anything he puts out on his YouTube, if it's training wise, I'm in there too.
Nice.
But yeah, that's it for following along with me right now.
Cool, man. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how things come along for your prep. I'm sure we'll get another one of these knocked out before you get too brain dead. Everybody who's watching, thank you guys for following along with what we're doing here. And like I said in the beginning, if you have suggestions on the next muscle group that you'd like to see us talk about, definitely let us know. Tommy Stiles, man, it's been a pleasure as always, brother. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.